Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss the 2014 Godzilla, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ken Watanabe, Elizabeth Olsen, Juliette Binoche, Sally Hawkins, David Strathairn, and Bryan Cranston, and directed by Gareth Edwards, the same director as Rogue One, by the way. Now, before I get into this, I did see this a few times in theaters, and what do I think of it? Well, I remember it being pretty cool, but is it remaining the same? Let's get into it. In the Philippines on the year 1999, the Monarch studies the lead by the studies led by Dr. Ishira Shirazawa, played by Ken Watanabe, arrives at a cave with his assistant Vivian Graham, played by Sally Hawkins from The Shape of Water. Discovered skeletonized carcass of a massive creature and emerged in Jadjira, Japan. We meet a young Ford Brody as well as his mother Sandy, played by Juliette Binoche, and his father Joe, played by Bryan Cranston from Malcolm in the Middle, who work together at a nuclear power facility as he's on the phone frantically concerned about local seismic activity on the birthday of Joe's that he completely forgot about, and Sandy dies while the reactor has been breached out, and Joe has to close the door while his wife is dying in there. And honestly, I didn't feel bad. This is a Godzilla movie, and I'm not here for the characters, but maybe the best character is Joe, despite Bryan Cranston is barely in this movie. 15 years later, an adult Ford Brody, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, is in the U.S. Navy after 14 months at sea. As he comes home to his wife Elle Brody, played by Elizabeth Olsen, and their son Sam, and hours later after a welcome home party for Ford. Ford is estranged from his father as he's not Ford, but Joe has been arrested in Japan for trespassing as Ford gets his father out of prison, and Ford is disappointed having to bail out his dad. And this plot is silly, as it's a Godzilla movie, of course. It's going to be silly, as these movies are a guilty pleasure, in my opinion. Ford offers Joe to stay with him and their family, as he needs to but Joe is let me see if I'm saying this word right, adamant about continuing his investigation, as he needs to know what happened that day, as his wife is buried in the rubble of the quarantine zone, as he wants to go back to the house for some research, as Ford decides to help his dad as they head to the old neighborhood, which looks abandoned and overrun, as Joe checks the Geiger counter, which shows no radiation at all, which was funny but yet interesting choice, as he knows it's safe. Ford and Joe get arrested, and as the cocoon is about to be born, while Joe is interrogated as he deserves answers, it's an EMP pulses that are knocking out their electronics with alarming frequencies. And now I'm really on the edge of my seat, as I'm here for the monster attacks, not for the human melodrama. Shirazawa concedes that it's time to kill the program, as some giant monsters called the Mutos, as the male has wings and the female just has legs, attacks the plant, and Ford gets out of a truck while he witnesses Joe getting wounded. On the next day, Shirazawa asks if Ford and Joe can come with them to a ship, as Joe used to work for the area. Unfortunately, Joe doesn't make it for long. As they get to the ship, they announce the name Muto as massive unidentified terrestrial organism, as they show Ford footage from 1954, the same vintage nuclear test footage that we saw in the opening credits, and Shirazawa calls the creature they killed the Mutos called Godzilla, or as the way he says it, Godzilla. As Shirazawa is convinced he is returning as a feeling, which is a convenient thing to say, and Ford doesn't have much to offer, as he puts on a helicopter. He's put on a helicopter, I say, for a flight back home, as the script so far is a mess. It's all over the place thus far. The Mutos arrive and terrorize the airport in Honolulu, Hawaii, as Godzilla shows up to fight the Mutos. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, Elle asks Sam to go to bed as he sees Godzilla and the Mutos on the TV, and it cracked me up that he called them dinosaurs. And this is what I wanted from a Godzilla movie. More Godzilla versus another monster, and less human melodrama. And the human stuff is a mess, but the monster action is the best scenes in the movie, other than Bryan Cranston, of course. Some soldiers witness an auto breaking out to Las Vegas as it walks in Las Vegas and destroys everything in Vegas, and Serizawa lets Godzilla loose and fight the Mutos. Meanwhile, Ford joins his fellow soldiers to Lone Pine, California, and the acting in this is pretty bad, sure, as the script is a mess except for the monster stuff. Ford gets to the train to San Francisco, and people are evacuating in a traffic jam, and Serizawa is concerned about what Admiral William Stens, played by David Strathairn, is going to do, both the Mutos and Godzilla, which is to destroy them. As Ford and his team are on the way to San Francisco, on train is attacked by the Mutos, and I can barely see the nighttime scenes, and that's going to be a problem with the final Godzilla vs. Mutos battle later on, as the special effects are fine looking. Hopefully they can improve on the next time. And we see the soldiers are buried in ashes, including Ford, who will eventually wake up, and Elle's put Sam on the bus with her work friend, which was convenient for the movie to go there. Ford makes it to Oakland, while the San Francisco bridge is attacked by Godzilla while a school bus passes by, which was absolutely corny. And we see the Mutos arrive in San Francisco to attack the humans, while Godzilla tries to save them, but still causes damage. And we see the female Muto is pregnant. And I thought, why would it deliver eggs while fighting Godzilla, which made no sense to me. Serizawa says to the Admiral, let them fight, and we're getting to the best and the worst scene in the movie, and I'll get there when it's the appropriate time, but I do love the way when the doors close in San Francisco, we see Godzilla versus the male Muto. The soldiers jump out of an airplane while Ford as they land in the middle of the battle, which seems kind of dangerous, but luckily they make it down except for two members, and they land at Little Tokyo, in San Francisco, where the fight continues, and I can barely see them fighting. That was the worst part for me as the scene went on, as I thought, go get some more lightings, as they're tearing up buildings, and the Mutos are beating up Godzilla at first, and the female learns her Muto babies are dead thanks to Ford, and Godzilla lights up and uses the atomic breath on the female Muto, and that was pretty cool, honestly, and so was the tail whip that he did with the male Muto when he hits it on the building. And it puts its atomic breath inside the female Muto's mouth. And these moments were exciting, but it's hard to see. Ford thinks when he sets up the bomb, he'll go on a boat out and it will kill the Mutos and knock out Godzilla until the morning, as we move on to the morning as San Francisco is destroyed. Ford, Elle, and Sam are reunited, and Godzilla wakes up as he won the fight and takes off in the water. And the climax was exciting, but I could barely see the nighttime scenes. And I hope King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong will improve on the nighttime scenes. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.1 out of 10. The writing is corny, sure, and same goes with the dialogue, and I expected that from a Godzilla movie, as I'm here for the monster attacks, not the human melodrama. The acting is pretty bad, sure, except for the two Mutos and Godzilla and Bryan Cranston, as the best character in this movie. But it was fine, but it was also a mess. But when Godzilla does the atomic breath versus the tail whip, I thought those moments were pretty cool. But it's almost the middle of the road for me. But I'll watch it again for entertainment reasons, as these movies are guilty pleasures, in my opinion. One more thing to add, it was very dark, as I can't see the nighttime scenes because they needed more lighting while filming those scenes. But I get the impression they didn't have the money to have more lights in these scenes. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Kong Skull Island. And until next time, let them fight.